Today, I have a really smart person with me, as always. Her name is Rachel. She works with me at Wonderman Thompson. So thank you so much, Rachel, for coming on. Can you
Yeah,
kind of can you give us like a little background of like what you do at Wonderman Thompson? Obviously, your job is very important, so just give the audience like a little bit of background about what your day-to-day looks like.
sure. I'm currently a senior campaign manager at Wonderman Thompson, and I work on a client account helping manage all of their email engagement campaigns. Um, I think that's the shortest answer.
Valid. Yeah. So what's that? So that client, if it's cool with you, I'll just say that client is Hulu, which is obviously a really big name that people would literally kill to work at. So a few things. Number one, I already know the answers to this, but I want to just ask for the audience, like,
Yeah.
how the fuck did you even get into this role to begin with? Like, that's such a niche role. And did you start in marketing? Did you have all this experience in management? Like, how did you get here?
Yeah, good question. So I have worked in marketing for a really long time now, just over 15 years from when I first started, and got into email marketing pretty early on. It was never solely my focus. I worked a lot in the digital space, managing websites, social media, and a lot of that always revolved around copywriting and marketing and strategy for talking to different audiences through those channels. So email's always been a part of my background for probably at least the last 10 years. And
Were
then
you,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. I was gonna say, were you officially like, where does your training come in with this? Because you're very, very skilled at what you do. I mean, I don't know if you know this. Obviously, you probably know it because you're hired at a massive advertising agency, but like, you're very, very good. You're very good with communicating with client, and you're also very good with giving me feedback on my own copy. Like, where did your training come in there?
Um, so I guess the part about copy that probably goes back to my college experience. I got into, well, I went to college mostly for sports and I was a comm major and just kind of lucked out that the university I went to, we had a really small communications department because it was a big engineering school. And that actually, I think, because it was so small and intimate, it was a really solid program. And their motto was learn by doing. So we did a lot of hands-on practice in all of our classes. So I learned to write pretty early on through that. And then just in like all the different, jobs that I had, starting from internships throughout, um, just learned to write copy, um, really kind of just by doing it and then applying what I learned from college to that. Now, thanks to the internet, there's so many resources. You could really find, a lot of that information there. Not that there wasn't the internet when I went to college. To clarify that, I'm not that old. Um, and then what was the second part of your question? Oh,
Just like, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I just wanted to kind of get to know how you got into this space just because it's very, very
Yeah.
niche. Like, how did you become a campaign manager at freaking Wonderman Thompson? I know that I personally know that you like entertainment and all that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I think one thing to think about is you don't just land in a current position without having various experiences to lead you there. So I never actually had a job before where I exclusively worked just on email. They were usually greater, marketing campaigns, especially when you have, lean teams. That's often how it is. You do, jack of all trades.
Yeah.
You wear many hats, and so by doing that, you can learn what you like and what you don't like. And I always knew that I enjoyed email, and eventually as digital marketing just continued to grow over the years and email became more important and then became, exclusive roles just for email marketing and focusing on that, I knew eventually I wanted to explore a job where I got to just focus on one thing, because I feel like so many jobs I had was a jack of all trades and kind of being spread across, all different facets of marketing, which is great. But I wanted to get that experience of really specializing in something. And I would say for years, I applied for jobs in that, and, nothing really took. And then 2 years ago, Wonderman Thompson reached out based on my background working in entertainment and also having worked in email marketing for this position to help, be a campaign manager. And that's where like the other marketing experience that I have also comes into play, because, you can build emails, but managing campaigns from beginning to end, there's a lot of different responsibilities involved outside of just building an email. So yeah, that's kind of how I got here.
For sure. Yeah, I guess it's always like a weird path to wherever we end up. But can you talk a little bit about like the client side, since you're obviously not directly reporting to, or you're not directly hired by Hulu, you're hired by an agency. Can you just go through kind of some strategies that you make sure the client's happy? And then like what happens when maybe like mess up and the client isn't happy with that? Can you kind of like run through how to mitigate risk there, like what that kind of looks like on a day to day?
Yeah, I think so client management or is really like client relationships.
Yeah,
And I think if you just look at it as, holistically, it's just human to human interaction. So I think a lot about how I would want information presented to me, if whether, it's just general back and forth communication or if there's an issue to bring up. Um, and I think that's something that just as people, you can learn that experience in various professional relationships that you have, even personal relationships. And if you are trying to maintain like a genuine authenticity to yourself, then you're going to approach your client, although in a professional manner, the same way you would anyone else you respect. And I've learned that a lot of people appreciate honesty. So again, like if there's a concern, an issue with the client, like how to address it. And, especially if it's a mistake on your end, then just like full disclosure, full transparency with them. They genuinely appreciate that. Um, and I think more times than not, you get to build a relationship before like there is a big issue. So through all the good times, right? You just continue to build on that and build that trust so that, when something does go wrong, and we have a really great client who realizes like we are all human and mistakes can happen. And when it does, okay, thanks for telling me. What's the plan to address this? Like, how do we course correct? And how do we also prevent it from happening again? And so being solution oriented, you had comes into play sort of after you address like any initial concern. Um, so yeah, I think like just understanding people, building relationships, and being true to yourself and to like your client goes a long way.
yeah, I would also imagine that extends out to me when you're giving me feedback on copy, or just like when you're giving someone feedback on any creative in general.
Mhm.
Speaking of creative, would you consider moving into a creative role, like maybe in your next role, or if someone offered you like a position at a brand you like, would
Yeah,
you step into a creative role, or do you think you prefer like the managerial side that you're on right now?
it's a good question. I think I've actually always thought about moving more to the creative side. And
Really?
something that has always held me back is that my background doesn't support it. Like I didn't go to design school or have some like creative arts degree. And, and so early on, I think that was always in my head, but it's a skill set that has developed through my professional career. So, as you learn the tricks of the trade and like get more experience, you gain more confidence that
Yeah, yeah.
I think that I do have something to bring to the table. There are, there's the production side of it and the campaign management in and of itself, like on the creative side. And so I think that's an avenue I would definitely be interested in. One thing I was always concerned about in taking this role, like focusing exclusively on email, was would I feel pigeonholed? And so the great thing about
Mm,
it, although that is the end product, we touch so many different parts. Like I get to work
yeah,
with you on the copy, get to
yeah.
work with our designer on the images. And then there's like the little bit of technical side where we actually get to build the email, and then the campaign management side, making sure all the pieces are coming together, routing it for approvals until eventually it's packaged nice and neat and sent out. And so the creative side is something that I've always held really close to me. Like I care maybe sometimes too much about like the copy and design and
Yeah,
want it
yeah.
to be perfect, because that's what our subscribers see. So
Well, I think that's a good thing, and I actually wanna ask you, what do you think actually makes effective copy, especially for a brand like Hulu where it's not super direct response, where they're sending you, like, mail and it's like a long sales letter? Like, what do you think makes for really effective punchy copy for some brands like Hulu or Disney or any of the other brands that, we see come into the ticketing queue?
what makes so
What
you're
makes it
saying
effective? Yeah,
what
so, like, what gets people to click in an email?
so in my opinion, there's a difference between effective and good. uh,
Okay,
and good is like personal preference too.
sure.
So yes, effective is meeting that goal. Like we want to get our subscribers clicking and watching this show. So you could put anything in that email so long as it's not offensive. And if you get those numbers you're looking for, then that was effective copy. Like
Yeah,
you you know you you met your goal. And there can be copy that's effective that I don't think is really good. Like it doesn't do
okay,
anything for me from like an enjoyment standpoint.
okay.
And that's sometimes like what I go back and forth with when I am reviewing copy and editing it. And like you've seen it too, how your copy,
Sure,
what you deliver versus what gets out the door. You're like,
sure.
I don't know if that's better, but is it going to get people to click? And so I think you have to find the balance. And at the end of the day, we are on this side of the business, right? We are marketing, like we're not creating the content, we're not
Mhm.
storytelling in that way. So there is an end goal. And when, like you said, or I've said, I told you I really like entertainment, I love storytelling. And so
Yep,
today the goal is to get people to watch this story, then we will tailor copy to best meet that end goal.
for sure,
I
and
hope I answered your question.
obviously no, that definitely answers it, and I guess there's, like, another layer there just because we're not working in-house, we're literally doing client side, or
Mhm.
client, so there's also that layer of that. How about, how about as far as, like, email itself goes? Do you think email in the future is going to be as effective as it is today? Or do you think, like, SMS marketing is or, like I mean, we also handle push campaigns. Like, do you think
Uh,
those are going to continue to outperform email over the next, I don't know how many years. Do you think email is going to be phased out? Or do you think there will still be space for email marketing and it'll just keep growing? What do you think about that?
I think there will still be space for email marketing. And I mean, it feels like nowadays almost like the ancient way of communicating. But when social media transformed into becoming, platforms for marketing, so much attention went to that. And I think email from an executive level was overlooked a little bit. But then social media got into right algorithms, and then it was like paid, and you had to start paying to reach your customers. And email was like the one avenue that, stayed true. Like if you send an email to a person, they're getting that email. Whether or not they open it is up to them, but there's no, algorithm that's gonna, kick your email out unless, the tech side of it, if it's spam or all of that can happen. But
Sure.
it is the most like direct to consumer communication that you could really ask for. And so I think that there's, there could be a lot of development within that. Like we're already seeing ads in our emails, like at the top.
Yeah,
But I think people, you still have email for your personal communication, even though most people probably communicate through text and, DMs, but email, yeah, I think it still has some legs. I don't know
for sure.
that how much it will transform, but I do like that, you know, you have an audience of this size, you're going to reach that audience versus when you throw up a social post, organically. I don't even know what the percentages are anymore, but I know it got
Yeah,
really 3, 5%, and if you wanted to reach more, you had to pay for it. So
even
that's
yeah, I mean, even paid media is not doing nearly as well as it was like 5 years ago. So yeah, the email
yeah.
is definitely super direct. How about like as far as younger people, like maybe they're 18 coming out of college, do you think that they should look into like email marketing jobs, or where would you direct someone who's like between like 18 and 22 just coming out of college? Like I guess just getting a job in corporate in general. Like I feel like that's such a huge gap where like I'm sure you've been asked, I've been asked by younger people, like, how do you get a freaking job? Like, do you have any advice on that? Like as far as just your
Yeah.
experience working in a massive agency?
Yeah. So I think like if you're, fresh out of high school, a great way to do that is an internship. And nowadays, at least in California, internships need to be paid.
Mhm.
So it's, and they can still be tough to get. But if you're able to get an internship, like you start at the bottom, but that's where you get your foot in the door and you get to see how everything works. And it's the best way to do it. You're 18, you probably don't have a lot of experience. You don't know what you don't know. So it's great to like cast a wide net. And when I worked at IMAX in the marketing department, we had, within like the larger marketing department, there was all like we had in theater marketing and domestic marketing, international, digital, creative, all these little teams, and we all worked together, but we had our own responsibilities. And so we had
Sure.
interns, and each team had an intern. And so they might be interning with the digital marketing team, but they got exposure to all the other teams. And then it can help like direct you on what path to go or to explore. And a good thing to remember, which I don't think I was like keenly aware of when I was younger, was that you can always like change direction. Um, I recommend seeing something through if you start it. But just because you have like a 6 month to year experience in one department doesn't mean you can't say, okay, this was cool. Now I want to go and see what production is like, or, um, you know, legal, like whatever might be within the company that you work in to gain that experience. And it doesn't throw away that experience you just gained, but in fact, you get to like build upon it because, like we talked about earlier, building relationships. When you get your foot in these doors, you start working with a lot of different people, how to manage different people, different emotions. And even though the day-to-day job might feel different, like you do gain like notable experience from every position that you have, um, that you get to take with you, even if it's not apples to apples.
For sure, I completely agree with that. How about as far as just building those relationships to begin with? Like you mentioned that Wonderman Thompson reached out to you. I
Mhm.
believe that was on LinkedIn. Like, how about if you didn't even have that relationship with Wonderman Thompson to begin with? Like, do you have any insights into how people might like start building a rapport? Is it like with recruiters at a company, or like do you have any insight there?
Um, well, to take a step back, like on how to build rapport, I think a really great way to do that is to be curious and ask questions. I think through that you gain a lot of knowledge and you
Mhm.
build relationships. I feel like I'm talking about relationships a lot, but I kind of think it's undervalued and
Yeah,
can be a, a real strength in your overall career. Um, and so asking questions will get you there. And I like to say there's no such thing as a dumb question. If you're worried that you may have a dumb question, ask it internally, but also like you live, you learn. So throw it out there. Um, so that's a way to learn how to build these relationships with people. Now, if you don't know anyone, I think LinkedIn is a great place to start, right? Like,
okay.
create a profile, connect with everyone that you know. And and when I first started LinkedIn, I was like, this is going to be, where I connect professionally. It wasn't Facebook. I wasn't going to go find all my friends on it.
Right,
And
right.
then after a while, I like changed my tune on that because, like you said, if you don't know anyone, like how do you make a connection? Well, maybe the way how LinkedIn will tier your connections, like the 6 degrees of separation. Um, Maybe someone I went to high school with, they may work in engineering, but they have a connection to the marketing department there, or they have a friend that works in entertainment. And so you could ask for an introduction,
For
um,
sure.
and meet people that way. And so I changed my tune on that. And now it's like, anyone I know, I'll connect with you. And fortunately, I think LinkedIn has stayed really professional.
Yes,
Um, so even as it's gained its like social feed, it all, really revolves around like our professional lives. So I think that is really a good way to do it and just connect with people, join the different groups that you might be interested in, um, and put yourself out there.
yeah. I think also one thing that a lot like this has gotten me clients in the past is just like adding value from the front. So like if you send, not saying this would work at Winterman Thompson, but hypothetically, if I sent over like 3 email templates that maybe I thought you could have needed,
Mhm.
just sending that to a recruiter, that's gotten me 1 or 2 clients in the past. So something like that, I think also helps. Um, but how about like as far as your day to day as a marketer goes? So right now you're working from home. Do you prefer to work from home or in the office, or would you rather do hybrid?
Um, Definitely hybrid
Okay.
or like hybrid to working at home. I think
Mm,
full-time office, not for me in my, especially my like current life stage. I have 2 young children, so it just makes life a lot more functional to quote unquote do it all when
yeah,
I get to cut out a commute. And even if my office was down the street, I may want one day where I get to work from home. There's so much more, so much less distraction. Um, you really can focus. And I think that's just with all the technology we have available, I think it actually increases productivity. I mean, all the studies show how it increases productivity. Um, Even, years before COVID, when in one of my previous jobs, I worked in office, but, maybe there was a day where I had to work from home and literally would have all my work done in a matter of like 3 hours.
Mhm.
I would be like, what's going on? Like, is it really slow? Like,
Yeah,
what's slow? I don't have someone stopping by my desk, every 5 minutes, and
sure.
myself, I'm not walking around getting distracted.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so you really get to stay more focused. And
Mhm.
I think, with all of that, and then it just improves morale. Like, I do think we still need human connection. Um, so it's nice to get to see people in person. And even when you do that, though, you don't need that full 8, 9 hour day in the office. Like,
Yeah,
you go in, you do some meetings, maybe you collaborate on a couple of things. And then again, back to productivity, sometimes it's easier just to like bang it out, in your quiet workspace. And I think it creates just overall happiness, and like happier people are better people to be around.
hell
And
yeah. Hell yeah. That's the key to this shit, I feel like. Just like, who the
yeah,
fuck wants to be depressed as hell at work?
no. And I knew when COVID hit, I was freelancing and
Mm,
I just had a baby. And so I, don't live right in LA. I'm in the suburbs of it. And commuting to LA to work in entertainment just was not possible. We're
right,
talking
right.
2 hours each way. You have young kids, like you can't do it. And so I knew when COVID was going on and everyone was remote, I'm like, this is my chance to get in, prove myself. And because there's this connotation, if people work from home, there's no accountability,
Yeah,
like go around, and it's, I just think that's a really archaic way of thinking because we still have to deliver work. So people aren't going to screw around, and hopefully they're going to appreciate the benefit they have of, being able to maybe accomplish some personal tasks while doing professional ones. And
yeah.
it's like a win-win. So anyways, yeah,
Can you
definitely
talk a
worth
little bit?
it.
Can you can you talk a little bit about your freelancing experience? Like what that looked like a couple years ago?
Yeah. Um, it was a little rough for me. I don't
Yeah,
know if I we kind of talked about this before, but I think you have to have real like grit and fire to jump into that world of freelance. Especially if you're starting from scratch,
yeah,
if you walk into it with clients ready to go, like that's a bit of a different story.
sure.
But when you're freelancing, you're doing it all. You're like the small business owner, but you're also doing the work. So when I did that, I had a couple just like small businesses and that's when I did a lot of copywriting because that's what people would hire for. And I was doing some digital marketing for a real estate group right before this and helping out, drafting all their social media posts, managing the website. And because of real estate, like they didn't do a whole lot of email marketing.
For sure.
Um, but yeah, doing some ad placement, and it's a grind. Like you're kind of all over the place. And that's really what, like I said, I always wanted to try an email marketing role where I got to focus exclusively on that one avenue of communication. And doing that, freelance gig just before that, where again, I was spread really thin. Um, and I basically was the marketing department. So I also didn't have other marketing collaborators to really work with.
Yeah,
And
that's tough.
that can be tough when you're working with a small business because often they'll question you all the time.
Yes, yes.
And like, is this really the best?
Yeah.
And you're the marketing expert in that situation. And so, versus now where I have a team that can also back me up. If
Yeah.
someone questions, our strategy, or is this really the right way? Which I don't mind someone asking like that question, but it can get a little exhausting when the people who don't work in marketing at all
Yes. Yes.
consistently ask the questions, and then it's like,
Yes.
why did you hire me if you're going to second guess me along the way? Because now I'm having to defend like all of my work as well, which is an added layer. So
That's so stressful.
yeah.
How about
So I
like
think
getting the
for, like, my current
oh,
stage
sorry.
in life, I like not interested in freelancing.
I feel that completely. How about just really quick, because I have about like 10 minutes left, but I just want to go over just getting that freelance client that you had, that real estate client. Like, what did that look like? Did you reach out to them or did they reach out to you?
So I basically got all my jobs like on the job boards, right?
Okay.
And I don't, oh my gosh, I can't even remember. What's like one of the main ones?
Is it
Indeed,
Indeed?
I think it
Okay.
was, yeah. So I filtered my search for like, my 20 miles around where I lived and came across it. So
Okay.
yeah, those job search engines definitely, like, anyone can use them. Any small business can use them. Specifically for copywriters, I think there's a lot of great, like probably more direct ways of getting that type of work. Um, I haven't done it in years, but like I would look through, I think it was called Upworthy.
Upworthy? Oh, I haven't heard that one. I know of Upwork. Is that a different one or?
Yes,
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. Upwork. Yeah, yeah.
Upwork. Sorry, told you
No, you're
didn't.
good.
Um,
So you had a portfolio on there and you sold yourself through there or you didn't use Upwork?
Actually, I would look for opportunities,
Okay.
but I did find with copywriting that for what I was looking at, like the pay was pretty low.
Oh, really? Okay.
I think that's also like I'm not a fast copywriter.
Okay.
So if you're fast and like you're gonna get paid for a job and like this is only gonna take me 15 minutes, then like that's great for you and that can work out. And I think there's a lot of great work in that. But again, because I wasn't just a copywriter, it wasn't really my niche and I didn't like totally fit the mold.
Sure, sure. Did you
Yeah.
have a portfolio though? Did you have like a portfolio or any of like body of work that you would display? Like how did you kind of get that
Yeah,
out there?
I have one. I think it's on like Contently, if I'm saying that.
Okay.
And links to just, different email and social media, a lot of it.
For sure.
That I put up there, like copy I'd written, or in general, like overall campaigns that I'd worked on, um, posted them on there. And
Okay.
it's tough. Like the job market is tough. And I think that definitely having connections is the way to go. And,
Yeah.
you know, whether it's just any networking opportunity you can get. Facebook actually has a lot of like groups that you can join, and they have them based on the type of marketing you're in, but then also like based on location. So if you want to like meet up with people in your area, and that's a great way to network. Which can be really intimidating. Like it's still not my favorite thing to do.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
And then, but I think like with Wonderman Thompson, it had just it worked out, and I feel so lucky that the opportunity came to me. And the recruiter had actually reached out to me years prior for the same role, but it was in office in Santa Monica, and I just couldn't
Oh,
do that.
wow, okay.
And he and I didn't have any type of relationship, but I think just with my, whatever filters they use for your skill set and having worked in marketing cloud, and they needed people who had that experience. And then I had some entertainment experience, and it just happened to be the right fit. But like, as most people, I've lost out on more jobs than I've gotten, like
Yes, that's
dramatic,
very relatable.
just, and some, like, when I had, after I was done at IMAX, and I just thought, like, my resume is in a solid spot. I'll be good. I'll apply to jobs and people are going to call me, like, it's probably on 10 years of experience, worked at the
Yeah,
Ritz-Carlton, worked at IMAX, and like crickets. I mean, just so tough. And I was being very like geographically restrained. So, because this was all pre-COVID, so there was really nothing remote that
yeah,
existed
yeah.
in marketing. Usually those jobs are, people that work out in sales, and, they're out and about most of their time visiting clients. So yeah, it was tough. I got a lot of like phone interviews, and
How many do you think you had?
um at least a dozen.
Yeah, it's a lot,
And
freaking lot.
then some of those progressed to another phone interview, um, one or two in person, and one I was really excited about, and they legit ghosted me. Like, which I don't know. I guess I was like shocked by it, but maybe I shouldn't be. Um, like they should have a boilerplate email they can send out and say like thanks but no thanks.
Yeah,
But and so it is tough. And I think that you're going to go through that when you're just throwing your hat in the ring online and you don't have a personal connection. Because even from the hiring side, the first thing companies do when they have a position open is they start asking, do you know anyone? Because
yeah,
that's
yeah,
the easiest way, it's the quickest way to get someone in. And if you've been in the industry a while and you've moved around, like you build that network and you know people, and there's people you'd want to work with again. And so, I get it. Yeah, when I got the job at IMAX, same thing. I applied on Indeed and they called me, and I went through the interview process. And when I got the job, my first week there, some of the employees, like we went out to lunch and they asked me, they said, so who do you know? So what do you mean? And they said, who do you know here? I said, I don't know anyone. And well, how'd you get the job?
yeah.
And I was like, I applied online. And they just like looked around the table and they were like, you just applied online? And I was like, yeah. Like, and that really felt like a 1 in a million shot.
Yeah,
And that was after almost a year of me looking for a job too. So
that's
it didn't
crazy.
happen like
That's crazy.
overnight. And I had much less experience back then too. And what happened was the hiring manager who became my boss, she and I connected on something on my resume that aligned more with like my personal life, but I was a volunteer English teacher in another country for 6 months.
Oh,
So
shit, okay.
I had that on my resume, one, to account for, 6 months of unemployment and where I was, but also like I was teaching and, like it was a job, an unpaid job. And turns out the hiring manager had taught English in Japan for a year, like
Oh,
10 years.
shit, okay.
So we really connected on that. And that connection told her that we were like-minded people. So I had the experience, so that wasn't the question. But then when you're being interviewed, it's how are they going to fit in with this team in this, work culture? Because you want to find a good fit. And so I definitely like recommend for resumes, like, although you keep it professional and you keep it relevant, like there's always that small part at the bottom. Like you can put your interests, personal accomplishments, you ran a marathon, like, because that will help you connect with the people that you will hopefully, be working with. So yeah,
Sauce. That's sauce.
I think it's
That's
so funny that that's probably what got me like in, because I had experience. I didn't have all the experience, but also you don't need to have all the experience because,
facts.
people don't want to hire someone who's overqualified because they're afraid you're going to get bored and want to move on. So you can be honest about, where you maybe lack experience, but how you plan or want to grow in that area. I think you always want to start with what you do know, what your experiences are, but it's okay to be humble and, acknowledge where you have shortcomings. And there's lots of resources, these days, just Google online, ChatGPT, they'll give you the answer for it. The worst interview question, what are your weaknesses?
Okay, so hold on really quick, Rachel. You just gave some sauce. Like, okay, so relationships, yeah, 100%, but putting in your interests, like that's how you actually connect to people once they've read your interview. Like I've literally been on interview questions where it's like, oh, like what are your interests? And like I connected over the UFC and like MMA. You know what I mean? So it's like you connected over teaching
Are you
abroad.
into
Like
that?
yeah, I mean, I suck at it, but I do go to like an MMA gym and everything. I've been
No,
practicing
because
for like
like
6 years.
how many emails have you written about the upcoming
Yeah.
UFC?
Yeah, and I actually watch the fights and everything. It's kind of funny. Yeah. So like that is something I do enjoy writing about because I can relate to that. But just speaking about what you've said, interview a lot. That's like huge. Relate to the interviewer, and you could always use your resume as like another point of reference for telling your story. So I think those three things right there, like, are the three gems of this conversation right now. And I wish I didn't have to go, but I actually have to hop on a meeting with Amazon in 2 minutes. So
Yeah.
I have to prep for that. But Rachel, I want to thank you so much. I really want to thank you for doing this so much. Do you want to drop your social media links or anything like that, or do you want to drop any like your portfolio or your Contently link or whatever?
Oh man, well, I'm not like super active on social media.
Sure.
Just like privately.
Perfect.
I'm on LinkedIn, so I can give you that information.
Yes.
And I can share, although my Contently website is, not updated. Definitely something needs to be done, but yeah, I can share that with you for sure.
Okay, definitely share that with me. And then your name on LinkedIn for the audience is just the way it's spelled on.
Exactly. Yeah. Rachel Havliana with a J. Yeah.
Okay, great. So if someone's looking for an insanely good marketer, reach out to Rachel on LinkedIn. I'm sure she'll provide top tier results, if not even better than what you're looking for. But I got to dip out. I'm so pissed. I got to dip out so early. They friggin' scheduled this meeting last minute. So I was like, fuck. I didn't want to reschedule on you, but they rescheduled it this morning. I was like, fuck.
We can do part 2 another day if you want to elaborate.
I'm down. I'm super down. All right, I'm gonna hang up now. Leave me your PayPal link so I can throw you a few bucks, and I will or Slack it to me, and I will catch you a little later, Rachel. Thank you so much.
Right, no problem. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you, Rachel. Bye bye.